Hello and welcome to BQ Pramam Hiraldaria. It seems that the summers have come in a bit earlier in the Indian markets as well, and that's clearly seen with the kind of heat that we are facing. But one company that would benefit out of this is a Symphony. Joining us on the show to discuss more is Nrupesh Shah, Executive Director at Symphony. Nrupesh, welcome to the show and a very good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Nrupesh, my first question coming to you is overall, if you see from a perspective as well, we've seen strong numbers that have come in. And now clearly seems that India is already baking in the month of February. Are we seeing signs of an early summer from a sales perspective as well?
Absolutely. So, normally at this point of time, by and large, secondary sales, that is, consumer sales, doesn't begin. But considering early summer setting, in some parts of the country, consumer sales has already begun. Secondly, across the trade channels, there is good demand and traction on top of whatever they have bought from Symphony during the off season with 100% advances. Of course, we keep the finger crossed, but seems to be heading towards a good quarter and showing summer.
Right. So, Rupesh, overall, historically, what's the kind of sales momentum that we see between this February, March, April period? And now, what are we seeing? By how much do you think is sales increasing already?
I won't like to indulge into exact numbers or percentage because still 6 weeks to go for the quarter. However, uh, March 22 quarter as well as June 22 quarter were historically high sales last year also. Similarly, December 22 quarter on a standalone basis, despite off season, was the highest ever December quarter sales. But in current quarter, on a YOY as well as Q2Q, we are targeting decent growth uh, with a decent profitability on a standalone basis in domestic market.
Okay. And overall, if you have to compare this to international geographies as well, is it a similar situation, or do you think the global situation is little bit of, on the negative side where we are seeing headwinds?
No, very clearly, our some of the large global markets where we do have operational subsidiaries and where we do have a large business, particularly United States and Australia, clearly there are headwinds. In fact, there are some of the large organized retailers, including Home Depot and others, have cut down the order in the expectation of the slowdown. But we believe that maybe when really summer sets in, probably they will regret as far as this product category goes, because our product category, air cooler, by and large, has nothing to do with the state of economy or rate of interest, etc. It's more about the comfort and severity and heat. So, in all probability, many of them may go out of stock. However, in a temporary period, at least for the current season, as far as international markets go, we will face the headwinds.
Right. So overall, if you see specifically from the US as well as you mentioned about Home Depot right now it will be difficult to ship products at the short notice, right? And the sales that US generates, the profitability quotient on that front is much higher than the profitability quotient in terms of the Indian markets. So what's the kind of impact we could see in terms of our numbers for the quarter?
Sure. So that impact will be mainly seen in March quarter. So far, it was perfectly fine. However, by and large, in current quarter, we expect to make up that loss from domestic sales.
Okay.
And very clearly, when summer will hit and they will need the goods, and if they are out of stock, nothing can be done. It will be out of stock.
Hmm. Right. Apart from that, if you see in terms of industrial cooler demand as well, how is that panning out? Because again, if summer is setting in earlier, that demand is also expected to increase further, though we've already seen high double-digit growth on that front on the back of a low base. But do you think the overall contribution in terms of business could be much higher than anticipated?
So as far as centralized and ducted industrial air cooler segment is concerned, we are doing reasonably well. Whatever current quarter and annual internal target was, we at this point of time believe that we should achieve it. And in terms of the percentage, of course, because of the low growth, it is in a very high percentage of the growth. And considering various other positive factors, certainly in the medium to long term, we are quite positive and optimistic on that segment. And point to be noted is, despite that being enterprise solution business, just like a residential air cooler, it's a capital light, working capital light business model, because whenever it needs enterprise solution or customers, we don't grant the credit. It is for our trade channel to grant the credit, but they need to pay us an advance. And secondly, as far as the profitability margin percentage is concerned, at the level of EBITDA, even currently, the profitability percentage is higher than residential air cooler. And now we have successfully made thousands and thousands of installations across the categories, across the segments. Uh, so seems to be very promising in medium to long term.
Right. And overall, from a margin perspective as well, now that commodity prices have started to see some cool off, plus on top of that, price hikes that have been taken, any further price hikes that could be on the annual, taking the demand into consideration, taking the season into consideration, and if yes, so how much could that be?
So as we have guided earlier, on a standalone basis, our aspiration is to be back to historical high EBITDA margin percentage. So still we are at not that level, despite in December quarter Q2Q and YOY, there has been decent increase. Secondly, of course, there has been somewhat softness in the input cost, but still vis-a-vis pre-COVID time, even at current level, input costs are far higher. But due to variety of strategies, including price increase, good model mix, and continuous innovation and launch, we are making up for that.
Right. So overall, I think we are launching a lot of new models as well as tweaking and upgrading our own models, right? So on the back of that as well, how much can a consumer expect the prices to go up?
So I won't at this point of time like to give the exact percentage, but certainly there will be a price increase in a further graded fashion on top of whatever price increase we have taken since 1st of July.
Right. And overall, from a demand perspective as well, any volume growth that we are baking into, our estimates as to what we should be looking at?
Due to competitive reason, and we being the only listed limited company in air cooling space, earlier we were sharing, but now we are not sharing the quantity figures and per unit realization. So I will refrain from sharing those data. However, our volume growth will be almost in line with the value growth, subject to price increase. So certainly it is coupled with volume increase.
Right. Another question I want to ask you is in terms of the buyback that has been approved as well. So overall, 2,000 rupees per share in terms of the buyback. What's the rationale to go with a buyback versus a dividend?
So first and foremost, our payout policy so far was up to 50% of the profit after tax. And on a cumulative basis, we have always maintained that. And payout can be either by way of dividend, special dividend, or by way of buyback. And this time we have resorted to buyback so that larger amount can be distributed. And for many segment of the shareholders, end to end, it is much more tax efficient. That's number one. Number two, through this mechanism, minority shareholders, partly at the cost of the promoters, will benefit, because as you know, 15% of the buyback is reserved for the small shareholders. So they will get the disproportionate high quota. And thirdly, that also expresses our confidence in terms of the potential future prospects and where we may head to.
Right.
And
So even
lastly, we
Hmm.
have also revised our payout policy, and henceforth, now our payout policy is at least 60% of the PAT, considering our business model.
Right. So overall, even promoters and minority shareholders who will be participating in the buyback, right?
That's right.
Right. And overall, from a company perspective, what's the key milestone, Rupesh, we are looking to cross from here on?
No, milestone in what respect?
Overall, from a business perspective, from a vision perspective.
No, so very clearly, we wish to be the apple of air cooler globally. Currently, also in a small pond, we are the biggest fish globally. But considering the potential, considering the heat wave, considering huge prospects, variety of benefits, environment-friendly product, whether in the domestic market or international market, it has a long, long runway. So we wish to grow on a CAGR basis at a very healthy growth rate with a decent profitability and continue to maintain our leadership, including in terms of the innovation, service after sales, and leveraging our global expertise and global supply chain as well as global R&D.
Hmm. Right. So I think that's a good path to embark on as well. Thank you, Rupesh, so much for joining us on the show. Always a pleasure to speak to you and get insights from you. And looking forward to speak to you once we see how the heat wave pans out, how the El Nino actually impacts India, and what's the kind of uptick that we've seen in terms of the overall demand as well for a company like yours.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speak soon.